My name is Ben, BTC Sessions, and the Mr. Scott 9000.
Hey, what's up? I'm Scott.
Uh, thanks, thanks, Dad. I appreciate it. Um, so yeah,
We got fans.
yeah, we are here to talk about disrupting mining, open source ASIC movement. Scott, I want to start with a question. What is your opinion regarding the current state of Bitcoin mining?
Well, it's very large. Bitcoin mining has grown up to be a pretty big thing. We're all here. There's lots of big booths and stuff, but sort of one of the things that I'm concerned about is the centralization of mining. It is right now, unfortunately, very centralized. Okay, whatever, Bitcoin's still working. Like, why is that even a problem? And I think the reason why centralization is a problem in Bitcoin mining and something that we should be concerned about is that if it's controlled by just a few people, they have the ability to censor it. It's not even a stretch of the imagination to think that a miner or a mining pool that controls a significant amount of the hash rate could just say, we are not processing transactions for BTC sessions anymore because of his hair or whatever.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, I could see somebody doing it. No, so I mean, this it seems to me like the current state of mining right now is the one glaring thing that doesn't lean hard into some of the main ethos of Bitcoin, right? The open source nature of it. There's a meme like you can just do things, but that's not necessarily the case in mining. You can't just do things. Why can you describe a little bit about why that is and the implications of that in terms of you can't necessarily just do things if you're hands-on with your hardware.
Yeah, right. That ethos of you can just do things is very important in Bitcoin. I mean, it's kind of the reason why we're all here is because some people decided we want to just do something with money. We want to just do something with energy. We want to just start new businesses, right? And the cool thing about Bitcoin is that you don't have to ask anyone for permission to do that. Uh, Bitcoin, one of the sort of main sort of on the box taglines for Bitcoin is that it's permissionless. You don't need anyone's permission to use it. You also don't need anyone's permission to develop for it, to create new things, to create businesses around it. Now that's a property of the network, meaning you can just join it and you can just do it. But we have this other thing called Bitcoin mining. It's a pretty important part of Bitcoin. Maybe one of the most important parts of Bitcoin is Bitcoin mining. And right now, as it stands, it is not easy for you to just do things, to just get involved with Bitcoin mining and change it how you want to change it, to make it work how you think it should work, to get access to it. And sure, you can just go buy a machine and plug it in, and probably no one's going to stop you from doing that. But we have so few creators of those machines right now that they really are dictating how they can be used, just by the fact of the features that they expose on any given miner or the way it works or the way it plugs in. As an example, a lot of the Bitcoin mining machines that we have now only work on 220 volts, which is not super popular in North America. So it's difficult for normal people to plug them in. That's just one small way in which they kind of say, this is how these machines need to be used. And it makes sense, right? The large miner manufacturers are going after their largest customers because that's how they make money. And those customers are running these large facilities that have industrial power. But I think the Bitaxe project has shown us that there are other people who want to do mining too. Other people want to screw around with this. Other people want to get involved. Anything from just plugging it in and letting it run and playing the lottery to like designing new stuff for it, new heat sinks, fans, all that good stuff, creating content around it, like the whole ecosystem that comes with building and designing and tweaking and learning and playing with Bitcoin mining, which is incredibly, incredibly important, right? That's how we move this thing forward.
So, I'm coming from a space where since 2016, my main shtick has been, you know, eh, let's take a look at wallets and cold storage and multisig and all these different things. And I've seen it change so much over the past 9 years. And I constantly have new things to cover and cool things to experiment with and teach people about and allow them to be more self-sovereign. And we have seen innovation in mining, of course, but there's a definite there's a dichotomy when it comes to the ethos and in the mining realm, at least in terms of what people can actually do with it versus, say like the wallet space. Like a lot of Bitcoiners are very, if it's not open source, I'm not going to touch it, and anybody should be able to pull this apart and change it however they want and then repurpose it and then go to market with it. Like that's very much how Bitcoiners have operated in and around basically every other aspect of Bitcoin. Whereas you were telling me, with an ASIC or you're dealing with that, and it's kind of like, I don't know, you got to reverse engineer it and figure it out yourself. And like, you compared it to, hey, I want to build a computer. I want to use like Intel chips for something, and they'll just maybe say what you said to me before about their ethos around that.
It's really crazy. I've been involved in the electronics industry for a while now, not necessarily building Bitcoin hardware, but building hardware of all types. And the way that the Bitcoin hardware industry works is insane compared to everything else. Like if you want to build a new computer, you want to build a new laptop, right? There are several different CPU manufacturers that you can go to, and they will go out of their way to get you these chips. They will give you a 1,000-page data sheet. They will give you reference designs. They will like send a field technician to your lab to like help you get it work because they want to sell you chips. It is kind of interesting that Intel, ARM, AMD, they don't make computers. They just make the chips. So that's how they make their money, is selling the chips. They want to get as many customers for these chips as possible, which means making as many different types of computers, laptops, desktops, servers, phones, all that good stuff. They want to see that. And so that's how the rest of the electronics industry works, is you can just go and get these chips. I mean, maybe you need to like talk with a sales guy for a little bit and tell him what you want to do to get them fired up, but you can get the chips. You can get the components necessary to try out your idea, to build your idea, to start your business manufacturing these things. And it's made for some insane progress, right? Like the personal computer industry was nothing in the beginning when it was just these large manufacturers that weren't sharing anything. It wasn't until it sort of, got to the point where people could start messing around and building things that we saw the crazy explosion of applications of CPUs that we have now. And I think Bitcoin mining, the ASICs, the chips, we're in those like really early days. You can't get them. None of the none of these big booths here will sell you chips to make your own miner. So I think we're really, really still early there.
There's a parallel as well with like early internet. It's like there's the AOL, Comcast. You can't email somebody from AOL to Comcast, and then all of a sudden there was this just glaring like elephant. There's the elephant in the room of the people that were on the open internet that could just do whatever the hell they wanted to do. And people started cluing in and going like, well, why can't I do this over here on AOL and what won, right? Like what?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had the explosion of the internet, not AOL. for this exact reason, is because AOL was just, if you wanted to see some new feature in AOL or start a new business around America Online, you had to like go get a job there, right? It was that guy Steve Case, right? You had to like go talk to this dude and get a job, and that probably wasn't going to happen. Whereas with the internet, you you can just do things. You just start it up, right? Like there's a lot of examples of now enormous internet companies that just started in a garage because someone wanted to do stuff, and this is what's driving the industry forward.
Do you feel like where we're at right now is just it was an inevitable stop along the way to a more open mining environment worldwide?
Like where we're at right now with like the current sort of centralization.
Yeah, where it's tougher to do things and
Yeah.
it's closed and like if you want a change made, like who was it? Was it once miner that asked somebody to, or somebody asked for a change in the chip? What
Yeah.
was the company?
Yeah, I talked to a big miner that's like a big, mining operator that basically switched from the biggest miner manufacturer to another one just so they could get a small change in the firmware, which is kind of insane because if you actually had access to the firmware, to the source code, you could just have one of your engineers do that in a weekend and you would just be able to try out your new business ideas right then and there.
Yeah.
It's it's kind of ridiculous the way it's set up now.
I feel I'm like right here, but so I'm just curious. Can you describe the back and forth that is like the brains booth is somewhere over there, but they always do their firmware, and there's like and then they're dealing with the Bitmain. What is happening there?
Yeah, what the industry is hampered by the current situation. There are several people that make aftermarket firmware for a very popular Bitcoin miner manufacturer, and so there obviously is a need for different functionality. Like there's businesses that have sprung up and can support themselves making this aftermarket firmware. Okay, so we have the need. The unfortunate part is those businesses, they're like it's like an adversive it's a battle between the original equipment manufacturer and these aftermarket firmware manufacturers because they'll release a new miner that breaks the current third-party firmware, and so then they have to hack it and go back and make new firmware that can load on the new one, and it's this cat and mouse game back and forth. That's just wasting time. Like it's just like this is smart people who want to work on Bitcoin and want to advance it forward and want to buy their chips, and yet we're just wasting time trying to stop each other from doing it. Like I'm not quite sure what the point
Well,
is.
and the opportunity cost has got to been huge. Like I said, there have been leaps and bounds in and around the mining space, but imagine if all of the effort of that protectionist kind of mindset had just been funneled into like, hey, let's just do things. Let's just do things.
Let's just do things. Exactly. Like we could be so much further along with Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining and just in general, like Bitcoin adoption, uh, if if we can just do things.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like we've been down in the dumps for the first 10 minutes of this, but there's a silver lining. There's something that, a project that you've spearheaded and this is where the disconnect and now the connect came from me was it mining as I was kind of coming into it, especially just like being at home and I'm, doing hobbyist things and so wallets and hardware and self-custody and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's always stuff for me to play with, but mining was kind of prohibitively like it was tough to do it living in a city. I don't have access to cheap power, stuff like that. So I could never really tinker very much. I think the first thing I ever did was get an old S9 and retrofit it with different fans to make a space heater in my office. But that was like my first mining experience. But shortly thereafter, I come across what you're doing. And now this is interesting to me. So let's for those unfamiliar, actually I'm curious, how many people here have a Bitaxe themselves? Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Oh,
That's awesome.
this
So
this is mind blowing.
yeah,
It's a big change from last year.
yeah. So for the people that didn't put up their hands, can you describe what the Bitaxe project is and why you believe it's so important and kind of how it came to fruition?
Okay, the Bitaxe is a small ASIC Bitcoin miner. Very small, like think like 15, 20 watts. That's like a cell phone charger. So you can run it at home. If you're married, you can stay married. It's very unobtrusive. It's not hot. It's not loud. It doesn't cost a lot to run. I think you're not going to even notice this on your electricity bill every month. The downside to that is it doesn't have a very high hash rate, right? You don't get anything for free. So your chances of setting up a profitable mining enterprise with a Bitaxe are extremely low. Your chances of solo mining a block are extremely low. So people call it lottery mining. You can kind of just plug it in and you're like playing lottery. I actually did the odds of winning and the payout compared to the California state lottery, and it was basically the same. So there's the off chance. Some people have won. We've had 2 confirmed people solving solo blocks over the last year or so. So it happens. But I think, and what I was alluding to earlier, a very important part of the Bitaxe that is unique is that it's an open source project. It's not even a company. It's fully an open source project. So you can go to bitaxe.org, my website, and you can get links to the actual source code for the firmware that's running on it. You can get the design files for the hardware, and you can audit it. You can make sure it's doing what you want. You can hack on it. You can change it. And people have done that. And that's kind of that's a really exciting thing to see, is people hacking on it and changing it and making it their own and improving on it. I started the project a couple years ago, but there's absolutely no way I could have done this all by myself. And I think I was very lucky to have a bunch of extremely talented people show up and want to help on this project. And I think that's in a large part because it was open source, right? It's not like they're just showing up at a company's door and volunteering to work. They're working on a project with a mission, and we're trying to like make this thing work here. And as a result of that, it moved incredibly fast. We're on the 5th major revision of the Bitaxe in just a couple years. We've got the latest and greatest chips from Bitmain running in these things. Yeah, I couldn't have done it alone. And I think open source really it's like a force multiplier, that this is out there and that anyone can like dig in and start contributing.
Yeah. And actually my first device that was it was actually a derivative. It's the NerdAxe was the first one that
Those are awesome.
they're awesome. And now I've got an array of them on my shelf behind me when I do the show, and it's great. Like it was so again, it makes it accessible. Like for me, it was, how can I dip my toes in and learn without, one, piling thousands of dollars into a rig that I don't know, 2, getting divorced because I have a jet engine in my office next to the living room.
It's like as loud and hot as running just like 4 hair dryers continuously 24/7 in your bedroom.
Yeah, when I retrofitted that S9 to make a space heater, I had the original fans on. I plugged that thing in. My wife, she was like, "What in the hell are you doing?" So that one didn't go as well. Once I got the new fans on, it was fine.
Yeah.
But much more friendly when you get this little thing in, and we'll call it a gateway drug to larger things, but it's so accessible just to plug this into the wall, get on a simple interface just on your local network, and just start tinkering it. Oh, I see. This is how if I want to connect to a pool or solo mine to my own wallet or whatever your decision is. But I mean, how do you view this in the short term? So like right now, are you viewing this as an educational opportunity, and how does that mindset shift over time? What does this maybe begin to become? Does that change?
It is an educational opportunity. There's a lot of different facets to it. I mean, when I started, I didn't have any of these ideas in mind. I just wanted to see if I could do it. But it has become so much more. And so a large part of it is education, right? It's a gateway drug, like you said. The barrier to entry is low. The first one's always free. Uh, but I think a lot of people find they want to get more and more Bitaxes, and maybe they want to, they want to step it up and get an S9 or an S19 and figure out, how to run that, how to figure out how to run it, because it can be really difficult. So it is changing, and kind of the goals here are changing, especially as more people get involved. I think one of the and I keep coming back to this, but one of the things I really want to see happen is Bitcoin mining return to open source. That this is I want to show that with an open source project that we can really make things happen, meaning we can really develop fast. Lots of improvements can be made in a short amount of time, and you can make money. There's lots of people who've started companies surrounding Bitaxes, selling Bitaxes, wholesale manufacturing Bitaxes, who are making money. Open source is not this like vow of poverty that you're just this altruistic miner, or you're just getting into it because you're into it. You can make money doing it. So I want to show that it can be successful, and that we can really advance the state of the art quickly with this, because I've seen that happen in lots of other industries, like we were talking about, the web industry, the internet industry, personal computers, also Bitcoin itself, right? If Satoshi had decided to pair up with Microsoft to publish the white paper and release it as a proprietary project, we would not all be here. We would definitely not all be here.
Yeah, Satoshi definitely didn't tap the Federal Reserve on the shoulder and say, "Hey, I've got a competing monetary system. What do you guys think? Can you get that rubber stamp of
Yeah, like,
approval?"
is this cool? Like, I want to get permission to produce this. So open source was obviously a very important part of that, and I think a big part of the Bitaxe is to promote that open source mining movement, bring it back. Because it was open source initially. Satoshi mined the original Bitcoins on software that he wrote and released publicly under an open source license. So initially, all the OGs who started mining Bitcoin on their laptops, they did it with open source software. They could just download it and start running it. There was a couple people that early on, they said, "Hey, this is kind of cool. Like, we have some experience using GPUs." And so they modified it to work on GPUs. And a lot of that stuff was released open source, then FPGAs. That's how I got involved in Bitcoin mining, was downloading some open source FPGA designs and running those myself and tweaking them and playing around with them. We lost all that with the advent of ASICs. When ASICs came out, people got very secretive. I think because there was a lot of money on the line, people had to invest crazy amounts of money for those initial ASICs. They still are. But the it, we need to have a return to that open source ethos that started this whole industry, that grew it to the size that it is now, that kickstarted it and made it what it is. And I think a return to that could take us to that next level, right? That next, like, that exponential growth in development and miners, and it can easily take us there. It will take us there.
What, in your mind, are some of the biggest hurdles to getting to that point? Because I mean, there's a lot of people that would absolutely love exactly what you're saying, but what's stopping people right now? Like, what has to be done?
We need access to the chips. We need ASICs to ASIC. ASIC is the chip. We need access to those. Like I was talking about earlier, this is uncommon in electronics industry where you can't get a hold of these. So we need access to those. We need to have documentation available for how they work. There's tons of smart people out there that could design these miners, but the reverse engineering process that currently has to happen to do that is insane. I spent a really long time on it myself. We still don't fully understand how these chips work. There's like these unknown settings on it. We just don't know what they do. We're trying to experimentally determine them. Anyways, that's a pain in the neck. That doesn't really scale. The biggest hurdle is the chip supply. If we can solve that, all the stops come out and the floodgates open here for
In
sure.
in what world do you see that happening? Like, What do you figure the incentive has to be? Or is are the incentives just not aligned for that to happen? But I mean, it's not happening right now. But what could align to allow that to come to fruition?
We have new players coming to the market. New players coming to the market. They're hungry. They've already invested millions of dollars in their ASIC tape out, their designs. They want to go after these new applications, these new customers, right? They need to find these new customers. And I think we we have we have this future coming for Bitcoin mining that looks a lot different than what it is now. Right now, I think a lot of Bitcoin miners are just buying boxes and plugging them into the grid. That that is not how this looks in the future. I don't know when it changes, but definitely in the future, it's not like this. It's a race to the bottom. You're trying to get the lowest energy cost you possibly can, and that looks like getting creative. That looks like going after stranded energy. Um, that looks like going after renewable resources. That looks like going after all sorts of crazy things. Heat reuse, that's the crazy one. Like everyone heats the water in their house. That could be done with Bitcoin miners if we only had the hardware to do it. So I think the thing that changes this is that first little tear in sort of the narrative that Bitcoin mining is just plugging it into the grid, and then the ability for chips to be available for makers and builders and companies who want to go after these target markets, and then yeah, it just cascades after that.
What are some of the things that you're seeing out there and some of the projects that you're seeing, maybe tangential to your own, that are some of the most positive and exciting that you can't wait for either people to just get their hands on that already exist or that are coming down the pike?
Oh man, there's so many. We have this Discord chat, the Open Source Miners United. There's like 7,000 people in there. People are posting all kinds of stuff, using Bitaxes, derivatives of Bitaxe, like you mentioned, the Nerd Axe. People are building more and more chips into their miner to try and get that hash rate up there. We've seen some really cool projects around going after stranded energy. Like think about taking a miner and strapping it to the back of a solar panel so that basically whenever the sun comes up, it's mining, and it can be totally wireless. Like you could just put it out in the yard, and as soon as the sun comes up, it starts mining over Wi-Fi, and then it stops when the sun goes down, and it's just generating you sats while the sun's up. There's some interesting control problems with doing that, but it's entirely possible, and there's some people working on that. I think that's really cool. I've seen talk to Gridless out in Africa. They're sort of they are providing a way for people to monetize the build out of these microgrids for people that desperately need it. And I think they are they're operating their miners in some very adverse conditions. It's really hot, dry, dusty, all the above out there. And so they can really use, and it's also in the middle of nowhere. So they need some remote management stuff. They need some different types of machines to go after those. They are getting involved in the Bitaxe project to build some of these ideas out. It's just, I don't know. And I've like all sorts of people have come up to me here and showed me new cool things they're making. We've seen the Bitaxe Touch is like, it's just like a very user-friendly version of the Bitaxe. It's got this glorious full color touch screen on the front, right? It just makes that like process of doing it even easier, lowering that barrier to entry. I'm super excited about that. So it's like these large categories that people are going after, like certainly way more than I could possibly do myself.
I love the resurgence of home mining in the form of lotto mining. I think it's a very compelling thing where you could say to somebody, "Do you regularly buy a lottery ticket?" Well, okay, well, stop doing that. Get this little device, and then if you need that dopamine hit in the morning, you check, did you hit a block? No, come back tomorrow, and it's just there.
It is really cool. One of the things I really wanted to have on the Bitaxe was that sort of high score that it shows on the display. It's your best difficulty. It's how close you have gotten to solving a Bitaxe. It's really cool, or solving a block, sorry. It's really cool to wake up in the morning and look at it and, did I do any better? Did my Bitaxe do any better overnight? You know, it That's a really neat part of it. I like having that screen on there. It's sort of like unobtrusive, but you can take a look at it every now and then. It kind of like ties you back into Bitcoin mining. I think the Bitaxe Touch has got even more of that, which I think is a really neat part of it. Solar mining or lottery mining is, it's a fantastic use case for this. And if it gets people to run decentralized open source small Bitcoin miners by the millions all around the world, I'm all here for it. And a crazy part about these small home miners that are running in lottery mode is they're never going to unplug those things. They don't care what the hash price is. They don't care what the Bitcoin price is. They don't care what the, local regulations and laws are. Like, Bitcoin mining gets outlawed. You're like, what? This little cell phone charger? Like, no one's going to know that that's running in your house, right? These are like just indestructible miners, and in mass, like in aggregate, millions of them around the world, they will have a significant effect.
My favorite event that I went to that you were at, down in Nashville, we went to the Global Bitcoin Summit for the Human Rights Foundation. There were 150 human rights advocates and political dissidents from around the globe. I can't remember, it was like 50 or 60 different countries all in a room. Every single one of them got a Bitaxe. And then all of us went back to the hotel and plugged in. There was probably 100 Bitaxes just plugged in that hotel that night. And it's such a valuable, again, just as a learning tool is incredible. And I guess I've got a general question to the people out here that are working in the mining industry. From what I've seen, a lot of Bitcoin companies, mining and not, they're growing at a pace where the the crop of Bitcoiners available for hire is just no longer there, and you need to start hiring normies. And those people are not as familiar with Bitcoin, and so they're in a job where they're dealing with Bitcoin all the time, and they don't have the experience. So I'm just curious, how many people of you work for a company and you know for a fact that a good portion of the staff have never actually mined themselves? Is there a good like I see some of that, and yeah, I see, yeah, there we go. There's a
Don't be
few.
afraid. We won't dox you.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like this is an opportunity where when you have staff that are new and you need them to be at least quasi knowledgeable about the stuff, you could be like, all right, we're going to have a little Bitaxe workshop and we're just going to teach the people on staff, like, hey, this is the practicals of it, the very bare bones basics. It's a great tool.
It is a fantastic tool. And I was telling you earlier, I think that the documentation and the tutorials and things that have sprung up around this movement, like it's not a company. We're not paying anyone to do this. The stuff that has sprung up, the desire of people to teach and educate and show people how to do this is huge. I mean, that's just as important as the hardware itself. So I mean, I really appreciate what you're doing and others are doing, like making these videos, these tutorials where someone who gets one of these dropped on their desk and is like, figure out how to do Bitcoin mining, right? They can go to a BTC Sessions video, learn how to do it, and then hopefully, fall in love with it and dive even further because it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
There's another interesting angle to it too, is that because this is a low barrier to entry project, it's relatively affordable to get a Bitaxe, and all the source code is along with it. Is there's going to be all sorts of people, kids that are just messing around with this and are going to learn how this works, and it's going to create a whole body of talent that can come work at your companies, of you know kids just messing around on the weekend with their Bitaxe and just accidentally learn how Bitcoin works, how the Bitcoin network works, and mining.
Yeah. So I did, speaking of kids, so my daughter is turning 8 this summer and she now gets an allowance. She helps clean the house and everything, but she gets it half cash, half Bitcoin.
Nice.
And the Bitcoin she has a Lightning wallet and she keeps it safe and everything. But one thing that I started doing to kind of show her a little bit about mining, I've got 3 Bitaxes got like a Brains mini miner and a FutureBit Apollo. And for like a month, I think I pointed them to a pool that did lightning payouts. And I was like, you see these machines in my office here? You're going to start seeing that you're getting more sats every now and then. And that's from them. And so she's looking, she's going, this is the coolest thing. So like, challenge to the parents in the room, try that out. If you've got, like it's a fun weekend project, say, hey, if you learn a little bit about something, you can see a few sats popping into your wallet. You can, make a few sats, and maybe one day your allowance will buy you a house. Who knows? So
If we're doing it right, it will. It will. It's a fantastic learning experience, right?
I think maybe we've got a couple minutes left here. I think I'd love to leave some actionable. I'm very much about getting people to take action after any content, they ingest a talk. I like leaving with people tasked with doing something next. And so like, we're looking at a room full of people that are, familiar with mining, if not like deep into it. And so, in your opinion, with given what we've been talking about in this open source movement and where mining goes in the coming years, what can the people that are here and are in it do to further this movement? What actionable things can they do?
Yeah, thank you. That's a fantastic question. I think open source Bitcoin mining can dramatically affect Bitcoin miners, people involved in Bitcoin mining at all levels, right? We've talked a lot about hobbyist mining and home mining, but this movement can also benefit large miners of all sizes. And you think, okay, wait, why? Well, we know that just plugging in miners doesn't actually make you a profitable Bitcoin mining company. There's always some secret sauce, right? You have operational excellence. You have this. This is how you're going to make money Bitcoin mining on top of just, hashing really fast. Think what you could do if you actually had access to the hardware and firmware, like the source code, the designs of the firmware that's running on your miner, right? That's what we're trying to do. I'm involved with a group called the 256 Foundation to promote free and open source Bitcoin mining. And we're developing things for the whole stack, for all parts of mining: firmware, hardware, control boards, software, everything pools up and down. This is a good thing for large mining companies to be involved in. Eliminate that counterparty risk that is closed source firmware that you don't control. You don't know how it works. You can't control what changes go into it. Open source mining can benefit your operation in a massive, massive way just by eliminating risk. And think of the features that you can build on top of that your engineers can build on top of that, and you can actually own it.
All right. Well, Scott, it's been a pleasure. Let's give Scott a huge round of applause. Glad to chat, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.